Assassin's Creed has changed a lot in the last half decade. We went from, well, games that were focused on being an assassin to the RPG Witcher 3 Lite formula, as some people call it Warrior's Creed. While I've been vocal about my disdain with the last two of these experiences, with one really not even having any identifying characteristics to this franchise, they've made a ton of money and a lot of people love them. There's a reason why Ubisoft switched things up after AC Syndicate, and that's because the original stealth and parkour focused approach was drying up. So thus we got games like Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. With doing so, the fans of the classic experience were left behind until now. Ubisoft has a critical problem that they still can't seem to solve, and that is how to make a lot of money outside of Assassin's Creed. That will remain an issue into the future, but for the time being, they have figured a way to continue to milk that precious Assassin's Creed cow, and that is diversifying it. On the way, we have multiplayer, VR, mobile experiences, more RPG open world games, a survival horror game, and yes, a classic one, that being of course AC Mirage, a game that was originally started off as DLC for Valhalla but branched out into something much more. For the last couple of days I have been playing Mirage thanks to a review code provided by Ubisoft. I also attended a preview event last month in which I played a few hours of it. I walked away from that event feeling pretty impressed with what I played, and while I haven't rolled credits yet, it's just nice to play an actual new Assassin's Creed game, even if its story isn't exactly all that thrilling and the gameplay loop can feel a bit too repetitive. The design of Mirage is a return to what made this franchise, stealth and parkour. But before we dive further into everything Assassin's Creed Mirage, this video is brought to you by Dragonair Silent Gods, an open world high fantasy strategy RPG that's released globally on PC through the Epic Games Store as well as on Mac, iOS, and Android, with a release planned soon as well on Steam. One of the recent multi-platform games showcased at Apple's 2023 Worldwide Developers Conference, Dragonair takes you into the vast world of Adenthia, full of mystery, revenge, and bloodshed. Incorporating many tabletop RPG mechanisms, players choose from different characters and classes, each with customizable appearance and attributes. From magic to dragons to ancient ruins to mysterious artifacts to boss fights to puzzle solving to dice roll checks to an immersive branching storyline that adapts based on your choices. Dragonair boasts an expansive experience not just in its main quests, but with fun activities such as engaging in drinking contests, recruiting NPCs, and facing outcomes of theft and romance failures. Featuring a unique semi-real-time combat system that challenges your skills and creativity, you'll find yourself combining distinct abilities with tactical skill timing for explosive combos against great foes. The second blockbuster from the publishing team behind Marvel Snap has now launched. Start your journey today by clicking the link down in the description below. A special thank you again to Dragonair Silent Gods for sponsoring this video. Assassin's Creed Mirage is set a couple of decades before the events of Valhalla. It is a coming-of-age story following Basim, a character that we previously met in Valhalla, and he is one of the more interesting parts of that game. Now in Mirage, he starts off as a street thief, and we see him fight his way up to joining the Assassin's Creed, or as it's called at that current time, the Hidden Ones. And then we obviously go on a long journey of going after the Order of the Ancients, or the Templars, whatever again they're called at that time. It's you versus the bad guys. That's the best way I can put it. Now, immediately, one thing that struck me when I jumped into Mirage at my preview event was just how much this felt like an older AC game. The games that really got my interest peaked with this franchise. It does not feel like Valhalla. It does not feel like Odyssey. I say that because of the fact that this is definitely a stealth and parkour focused approach that Ubisoft took with this. I actually made that mistake early on in one of these missions, going up to one of the guards and then trying to go one-on-one with them with swords, and that was not the approach to take. Your actual notoriety goes up. You hear NPCs around you shouting like, oh my god, this guy just killed a bunch of guards, and it draws attention, and then on the rooftop you can see archers looking about for you. You then are chased. It actually feels quite tense to take that non-stealth approach, and the game gives you consequences for that. This is just something that feels very foreign to me at that time. Now with that said, the more modern Assassin's Creed games, some of that identity is still in fact there. You still have some of these upgrading and crafting components. When you're traveling about, you'll still find loot boxes in which you'll get straps and certain ignits, and that you can turn into upgrades for your weapons. Although this time around, it definitely does not feel like you're exactly looking out for the stats of each weapon and trying to make sure that their legendary status and such. Even after like about 5 or 6 hours of playing this, I almost forgot about it completely because of the fact that when I'm going up to an enemy and taking a stealth approach and assassinating them, there really often wasn't that, I'm not going to be able to assassinate them. I think 99.9% of the time that was not a problem. It was when you were throwing knives and stuff, yes, you did need to upgrade stuff like that. And that's where you get some bonuses with exploring the world. And also you do find some interesting coins. That's actually another very cool part, is that there are some story integrations with that. Like when you're about to attack a certain stronghold or such, you can go up to a merchant. If you have the necessary funds, you can pay them off to get around something. And you also see that with some of the other currency. There's like merchant coins and power coins and stuff, and you can use that on other different types of guards to maybe be a distraction for you when you want to take down a stronghold. And that's why, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to approach these bigger strongholds or these enemy-filled environments, which I really do appreciate about this game, because in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, of course you could take a side approach into these, but often it was always going to result in the same thing, and that was going to be a sword battle. This one you definitely don't want that sword battle, as you'll have 20 to 30 enemies jump on your position, and while yes, you can stab at them, you can dodge them a little bit, there's going to be a struggle to get around those battles, and often you're just going to be running away from them because it is a pain in the butt. Obviously, yes, you can progress your character up, and you can make those encounters a lot more easier. There is a new focus meter, which I saw there's some controversy online in the last couple weeks because it takes people out of it. It's something that really can just be ignored, but it is something that yes, you can pretty much teleport yourself at one enemy, and then teleport yourself to another enemy, and then teleport yourself to another enemy. And then after you assassinate a couple of other enemies, that meter reboots on up, and then yes, you can continue to use it. And it definitely is... it's interesting. It's something that I didn't personally find too much of an issue, but it's there, and yes, it can still be ignored. Throughout the other combat situations and encounters that we might find ourselves involved in, pretty much when we're not being an assassin or taking advantage of stealth, the game does rely heavily on a parry and dodge mechanic, something that is familiar to this franchise and satisfying enough here. There are also numerous tools at our disposal, not necessarily for this action-packed approach, but more so the stealth. We have a noisemaker, which can draw enemies towards it, a blow dart, again, that is just kind of like an easier throwing knife, I guess you could say. And then we do have our throwing knife. We have a smoke bomb, which if you are taking that action-packed approach and you're surrounded by numerous enemies, very easy to get away from them. And then there's also a trap. Assassin's Creed Mirage fortunately doesn't have a major focus on microtransactions. Yes, just by exploring the open world of Baghdad, you can come upon usually golden loot containers that have some really cool outfits and costumes that you can utilize. As you can see in some of the gameplay, I actually have Ezio's outfit from Revelations, personal favorite of mine. But as we get to some of the bigger issues that I have with the game, a lot of it surprisingly has to do with the technical side of the game. The enemy AI is often dumb as bricks. The graphics of characters just does not look all that great. It actually looks quite dated. And also sometimes the lip syncing just does not completely add up with the characters' faces. And there are some bugs, mostly it's just visual stuff, but I did notice, unfortunately, a lot of FPS drops, especially when I was having killing animations. So a lot of stuff that took me out of the experience, unfortunately. Now, as you walk around this game, and if you build notoriety, one thing you will notice is that there are wanted posters, and there are also individuals that you can go up to bribe them and tell them to pretty much help you become unwanted. Your notoriety goes back to 0. But it seems to be a lot easier just going after those wanted posters, which are pretty much on every corner. You take them down, it takes one of your notorieties down. Now, Eagle Vision is back. Your eagle still helps you out. That is another thing. You can still scout enemy encounters. One thing I really did appreciate about the quest design, the level design of a lot of these missions so far, is that often the game gives you an area, an objective, and then pretty much tells you to figure it out. Yes, there is a little bit of an indicator that tells you the direction that you need to go in, but some of it is you have to do some problem solving. You have to use that eagle vision to find the necessary NPC that you have to come up to. But I do love the fact that there is a little bit more detail with these encounters, and it isn't so much of the game hand-holding you. Now, The one big mechanic that is in this game is pickpocketing. This is something that I took advantage of a lot in my last couple of hours of playing the game. You find all kinds of little trinkets and some valuable items that can be traded in. Again, this is another thing, you can get a bunch of currency, then you can use that currency to buy crafting components to upgrade your weapons and some of your gear. But you can also utilize this mechanic to get merchant and power coins, the more valuable stuff that is useful when taking down enemy outposts, as I mentioned earlier on. Now, within Baghdad, it is a very big region. Now, I understand that everybody has expectations in terms of these open world size, especially when we're talking about Odyssey, Valhalla, Origins, which are just so huge, and obviously this game is nowhere near that size. But the one thing about Baghdad is, and I think Ubisoft said this in a lot of their marketing material, it is an open world that you can explore just by using parkour, and that is certainly the case, because almost throughout this experience I never jumped on the horse or the camel. It was always taking advantage of jumping on rooftops and ledges, and it is a lot of fun. The parkour is nowhere near the quality of, say, AC Unity. The important distinction that it can be said about, let's say, Valhalla versus Mirage, it's the fact that the game's built around parkour in Mirage. It's quite clear that all of the design, everything is built around you taking advantage of that specific mechanic, while in Valhalla that wasn't the case. It was about you being a Viking and you going on the rivers and, conquering certain villages and stuff and raiding and all of that. That is not what this game is at all about. It's about giving you the classic Assassin's Creed experience pretty much in all aspects of the gameplay. Now, throughout the open world of Baghdad, there are a series of different activities to take part in. None of them are all that interesting, unfortunately. That is probably one of my bigger criticisms within the open world, is that yes, you can pickpocket enemies, yes, there are certain opportunities for some side quests, but none of them really are all that captivating. And that kind of goes back to the bigger issue that I have with Ubisoft as a game developer. It's just the fact that their narrative content really is lackluster to a lot of what we see from the rest of this industry. And that is part of my issue with the main narrative of Assassin's Creed Mirage. It is interesting enough. It pushes you forward. You're taking on orders of the ancients, which are the bad guys. You're having to investigate them. There's a huge investigation board, as we've had in like the last number of Assassin's Creed games. And then yes, there is that big alpha Order of the Ancients that you have to take down at the end of it. It is what it is. That's the best way I can describe it. This game isn't revolutionizing the formula that made these older Assassin's Creed games so famous. It's just bringing the franchise back to its roots, which for a lot of people, it's more than enough. But for some people, I think I can understand why they would want something a little bit more from this formula being brought back here in 2023, but that just isn't what's happening in this case, unfortunately. There is a lot of simplicity with the design of this game, much of which that I do believe pays homage to the origins of this series. It's just nice to know that Ubisoft did not forget about the classic experiences that made Assassin's Creed what it is today. The problem is, though, when Assassin's Creed Mirage is releasing. It's a 20 to 30 hour experience that's coming just a couple of weeks after Starfield, a giant RPG. A couple weeks before that, it was Baldur's Gate 3, another giant RPG. And then the last week or so, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty launched, a giant expansion for that game, which really you could say that it's really like a full game with the amount of content that's included in that. And then in the coming days and weeks, we have linear story-driven experiences coming from the likes of Remedy with Alan Wake 2 and Insomniac with Spider-Man 2. And the problem is, when you make a list of these games and you put what is going to be a priority, Mirage is at the bottom of that list. And I still walk away from this game thinking that way, because while Mirage has a lot of good, it's bringing that classic formula back, it's not doing anything that is too different from those games. And the narrative content just isn't what it was once. That's the big difference between Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and now. While I love Basim, I think he is a very likable protagonist, I don't think he compares to the likes of Ezio and Altair, because of the fact that those experiences just had much better narrative direction. And that is just a problem that I have with the overall structure and the design of Ubisoft's last I don't know how many games. Not necessarily just with Assassin's Creed, but also with Tom Clancy and Far Cry. That is something that has driven me nuts, and I don't think that is something that has been addressed yet, and it's still a problem. Not necessarily just with the main story content, but also side content that is just often boring. And again, here, it just isn't something that really drives my interest. And especially when you're asking people to spend $50 on this, I think overall, I think a lot of people will have the feeling of just getting this later on and waiting for a sale, and that's actually what my recommendation would be for this title. If you are a die-hard Assassin's Creed fan looking for that classic experience, yes, this is a day one purchase. But if you're somebody who is really just looking for a fun game to play, I'm probably going to tell you to go play Phantom Liberty or Starfield or Baldur's Gate 3, or maybe in the coming days and weeks, Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2 before playing this, and I do think that is a problem, and maybe why Ubisoft should have launched this maybe a little bit later on. But hey, to be fair to them, they obviously intended to have this launched a while ago, but delays happen, and here we are in the holiday season of 2023, and I just do wonder if this is a game that's going to be ignored by many because of the amount of quality content that we are seeing in this short span of time. So AC Mirage is a solid enough journey into the vibrant Middle Eastern city of ancient Baghdad, full of palaces, sand, and mystery. Anyway, what do you make of this game? Is this something that you plan to play? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.